This video was kind of driven by this tweet, as well as things that I was thinking as I was doing my review of Deadpool and Wolverine, and the conclusion I will get to at the end is that no, these things are in almost every respect not the same thing. So how did I get to that conclusion? Nobody asked. In this video I will also attempt to work out why Deadpool and Wolverine seems to have been received much better by the audience than She-Hulk was. Deadpool and Wolverine is an action comedy sci-fi that I gave quite a nice review to, and She-Hulk in some ways is a very similar IP to Deadpool. It's another superhero IP with a lot of comedy and frequent fourth wall breaking. It's listed as a superhero action sci-fi comedy and legal drama, and I gave She-Hulk very bad reviews. Deadpool and Wolverine is currently sat on an 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb, whereas She-Hulk is on a 5.2, and I can't help but think both of those are still a little too high for me. I liked Deadpool 3 and it made me laugh a lot, but 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb is the same score as Blade Runner has, so calm down. Another shocking fact that I ran into is that She-Hulk had a budget of a reported $225 million. For She-Hulk. Deadpool cost a reported $200 million to make. How? How did She-Hulk Attorney at Law turn out more expensive than Deadpool? Deadpool had Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Garner, Channing Tatum, Chris Evans, Morena Baccarin. Why was She-Hulk so expensive? Did they pay Tim Roth $100 million to do it or something? So as I was writing that review at Deadpool 3, I asked, do plot holes really matter in a thing like Deadpool, a fourth wall breaking comedy? And I concluded that I'm not sure they do. Because I think back to things like Monty Python. Take a film like The Holy Grail. A person could say, why are they walking around while hitting coconut shells together to effect the sound of a horse's hooves? That's just silly. And yes it is. But being silly is fine in a comedy. This would be an issue in a whodunit mystery, but it's fine for a comedy. The conclusion I've come to is that pretty much the only thing a comedy needs to be a successful comedy is funny. That's it. If comedy is entertainment consisting of jokes and sketches intended to make an audience laugh, and a film makes people laugh and was intended to, it has succeeded for them as a comedy. If the plot makes no sense, it doesn't matter as long as it makes people laugh. And what is a good comedy is a tricky thing to quantify, because comedy is so subjective. What is funny to one person may not be to another, but complaining that a comedy is not realistic is like complaining that surrealism is not true to life. So I gave Deadpool and Wolverine a nice review. And then, almost nobody watched my video as usual. That would be upsetting, but instead of being upset, I chose to pick 2 kilograms of blackberries and then watch the women's beach volleyball at the Olympics, sat in a velvety bathrobe in a high-backed armchair while eating them and drinking tea. Shortly after that, I had to run to the bathroom because I'd foolishly eaten 2 kilos of blackberries, so I just had 400% of the fibre my body should have in an entire day in an hour, all while drinking a diuretic. And where I think I got to is that Deadpool is an action comedy sci-fi, and out of those 3, I think it's most successful at being a comedy. Pretty good at being an action, because I don't think multiverses are a good basis for a story. An action is more dependent on story than comedy seems to be. Multiverses kind of destroy stakes because Wolverine can just get done in, and there's still an infinite amount of alternate universe Wolverines that can just step in. I personally am hoping for more of the Cavalry, and for me Deadpool is probably least successful at being a good sci-fi, because I don't think the story is really Deadpool 3's strongest suit. The story is mostly about taking the audience towards jokes. So why do I think Deadpool and Wolverine worked for me where She-Hulk failed? Well, She-Hulk tried to bridge a lot of genres. When I asked Google what genre She-Hulk Attorney at Law is, it told me it's supposed to be an action-adventure, superhero comedy, science fiction drama and legal drama. And I think the reason She-Hulk didn't work for me is that I don't think it was a good example of any one of those genres. I explained why in my reviews at the time. I think it failed at every single one of them. The action was surprisingly bad for an action. There wasn't even very much of it. It has nothing I could even describe as being an adventure in the entire story. It was a superhero show with barely any superpowers in it and almost no heroism. Nothing I could really describe as dramatic in the entire story. The legal sections were frankly inept. I read quite a lot of She-Hulk when I was making videos about the series at the time, and frankly, unlike Deadpool, I don't think the She-Hulk writers even got the character of She-Hulk from the comics right. I don't know who they wrote, but I don't think it was She-Hulk. Granted, she's changed quite a lot depending on which run of She-Hulk you're reading, but I don't even recognise the character that they wrote for this series. The writers just seem to have written a self-insert, and not the character I read in the comics. I remember She-Hulk being a superhero, not getting drunk and having disastrous online dates. They took a character that in places in the comics was also quite a raunchy free spirit and made her into a bitter feminist drunk. So if you have a character that the audience actually likes, and a lot of people really seem to like She-Hulk in the comics, it's also quite a good idea, I'd say, to actually write that character. Can you imagine if the She-Hulk writers had got hold of Lord of the Rings and told the audience, yes, we know Aragorn was kind of supposed to be a heroic leader trying to find the confidence to lead, but now he's a bitter feminist drunk instead. Enjoy! I'd say when the audience goes to a cinema, they have certain valid expectations, and Marvel has just not been meeting them recently. A lot. I mean, like when people go to see a Blade movie, they expect Blade to be the main character. What a shocker. Not his daughter. They expect Blade to look pretty much like this. Use a sword, fight vampires, that's what Blade is! The Blade audience don't expect or want Blade to be playing second or third fiddle in a Blade movie, and for it to be instead all about his daughter. When people go to see Wolverine, they expect him to look something roughly like this. Be surly, angry, call people bub a lot, cut things with his claws. They expect superhero action, that's what Wolverine is. People don't want a 90-minute movie about Logan where he never gets his claws out once, instead goes to a book club and makes heartwarming friendships with elderly ladies and discusses his feelings. When people go to see a Mad Max saga, they frankly, I think, expect Mad Max to be in it. Deadpool and Wolverine is an exception to this recent trend in that it delivers the things it's supposed to. And surprise surprise, it actually did well with the audience. Ryan Reynolds somehow managed to get through the promotion of Deadpool without insulting the audience once. And as for comedy in She-Hulk, I'm trying to think back, and I don't think that series made me laugh even once during its entire runtime.
Did you guys rob an Asgardian construction worker?
Yeah.
The funniest part of it for me was writing the reviews and finding out that the actress Jamila Jamil had tried to do a flying kick stunt during She-Hulk and had instead damaged her bottom. That was the closest the series ever got to being funny for me. So it was this tweet. It's the same thing, just made for a different audience. Both are funny, but only one gets hate. That tweet is sitting on 14.1 million views. Despite the horrendous punctuation, this person seemingly does not know how to use a full stop. And no, those two things are not the same, and if somebody says they are, I can only conclude that they didn't get the joke in Deadpool, because that opening for Deadpool and Wolverine may be my favourite part of the entire movie, which is kind of bad in a way because it peaked too soon for me. You have Deadpool digging up Wolverine's grave at the start, a hero that expired in the film Logan, and it was a very sombre and serious movie. Deadpool is convinced that Logan can heal from anything, so he must be alive. Only when he digs up the grave, it turns out he isn't, and Deadpool then asks, how is this movie going to be respectful to Wolverine and still have him in the movie? And then proceeds to be the least respectful that it could possibly be to Wolverine, as Deadpool uses parts of Logan's furry adamantium skeleton as weapons to brutalise a load of bad guys that turn up. So the seriousness of Logan gets subverted and turned into a joke in Deadpool and Wolverine. It's also the juxtaposition of the extreme violence and the clownish stupidity that make it funny for me. It's the juxtaposition of the action and violence and the complete lameness of Deadpool dancing to NSYNC and doing their dance moves with complete confidence. It's outrageous, disrespectful and rude, and yeah, that pretty much captures what Deadpool is. So what's the joke in She-Hulk? Why was she twerking? Well, it seems the writers wanted to put someone famous into the series. Jamila Jamil suggested Megan Thee Stallion, and it made a dream come true for the woman playing She-Hulk apparently. That's it! There was no joke! I wonder if anyone has told Megan Thee Stallion that the stallion is a male horse. Maybe Shorty knows and was just trying to titillate Vorsh. The two things are similar in no way, apart from that the two characters are dancing. I can't think how this person could have made their analysis any more shallow and surface level than they did. So that's why I think Deadpool and Wolverine has been successful where She-Hulk wasn't. She-Hulk failed to deliver on almost every single level, whereas Deadpool did. It wasn't because She-Hulk's a woman. I would in fact quite like to see more She-Hulk, or in fact some She-Hulk at all, because whatever character was in the series I barely even recognised as She-Hulk. Just this time, Marvel, maybe get Ryan Reynolds to write it instead. Deadpool and She-Hulk together could be extreme amounts of fun. If you want to sell the character, maybe make that movie, and let her be a hero, and for heaven's sake, let her be fun.
Of course! If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.